There's a front page post on Reddit this week. Am I overreacting that I caught my boyfriend saying that I love you to another girl? First sentence, he had her saved in his phone as Kyle Bossman. Babe, that's not another woman. That's just Kyle Bossman saying he loves me. We made it. We're here. I realize it doesn't feel like the biggest console launch of all time. Sure, but it's still a big deal. We're 1 week away from the launch of the Switch 2. Which means, incidentally, it is now time for one final Switch 2 launch watch. Now, last week I spent some time waving goodbye to the Switch 1, maybe a little too early. This week, I'm going to make some broad assumptions, way too early, about the Switch 2. Because the way I see it, it's now or never. Nobody wants your sports predictions after the game is already started. No one wants your weather predictions after it's already raining. So here are my last chance expectations for the Switch 2. And by the way, the reason I say expectations and not predictions is I think predictions are a little more fun. They're a little more wild, whereas expectations, I think, are a little more realistic and perhaps rude. You'll get what I mean. Expectation number 1. I think third-party games will have a Switch 2 look. A big encouraging difference between the launches of the Switch 1 and the Switch 2 is that this time, Nintendo was able to say, look at us. We're part of the current generation. We've got Cyberpunk. We've got Split Fiction. Call of Duty promised us 10 years. And I think the clearest illustration of this is Street Fighter. When the Switch 1 launched, Capcom supported it 3 months later with Ultra Street Fighter 2. Basically a slightly upgraded re-release of Super Street Fighter 2 HD Remix, which was 9 years old even then, and they also added a pointless motion control mode, because it's the Switch. Now, with the Switch 2 launch comes a full, regular, feature-complete port of Street Fighter 6, meaning it has everything all the other regular Street Fighter 6s have. And a pointless motion control mode, because it's a Switch. Still, you look at this. It's the same game, but you can kind of tell it's the Switch 2 version. Like, it's not ugly. It's not bad. It's not bad. It's not bad. But you can kind of tell. And I think that will only become more apparent as the generation rolls on. You'll be able to say, ooh, yeah, that's running on Switch 2. Like Cyberpunk 2 is now officially in development. Just talking expectations here, right? I already don't expect that will ever be on Switch 2. Expectation 2, game chat doesn't last, but Nintendo Switch Online thrives. We're bringing back Paul Rudd to be in our Nintendo commercials. He's not here to advertise how powerful the console is. This time, decades later, he's here to advertise game chat.
You boomers are cute, but you're gonna lose.
Sure, it's Nintendo trying to incentivize the feature. You can't do any of this on a Switch 1, or a PlayStation for that matter, but you kind of get why Nintendo would be stressing this so much, because they're not making nearly as much money from their subscriptions as PlayStation and Xbox are. And yeah, the GameCube library is a big deal. Obviously, they were holding on to that one. Wait till they announce the Wii library. That'll be huge too, right? But probably not enough. And I think the avenue is new games. Something I don't think I've ever even brought up is F-Zero 99. I think F-Zero 99 is like a perfect use of maybe a less popular franchise, making something new and interesting out of it, and having that as just a cool bonus for subscribing to this online service. When we got Nintendo President Shintaro Furukawa saying that they have to come up with attractive elements that make consumers truly want to join the service, I just can't foresee game chat being the thing. I don't think it's an attractive element. And I think games are. I think games will be. And so, no, I'm not saying that there's going to be like more 99 versions of Super Nintendo games. I'm saying at some point, there's going to be a game that makes you so frustrated that you have to subscribe to Nintendo Switch Online. I'm talking about like Waluigi's Toxic Island of Forbidden Beach Ballers. Try not to play that. Number 3, Switch 2 finds its vibe in 2026. Because at this point, I don't feel like the Switch 2 has its own vibe. From the advertisements to the packaging to the menus, it really just seems like an extension of the Nintendo Switch. It's nothing revolutionary here, more of what you love. Think back to the launch of the Wii. How do we sell a Wii? This is what they landed on.
We would like to play.
And think about how different that was from the GameCube. And I'm saying the Game Boy Pocket felt more distinct from the Game Boy than the Switch 2 does from the Switch. And yes, again, I understand. It's strategic. It's their plan. It will continue most likely, but I feel like to introduce the new people in 2026 by the end of next year, they're going to have to start rocking the boat. They're going to have to start shocking people. And I think that's truly when the Switch 2 will begin to glow. Maybe literally. Expectation number 4, Dragon Drive disappears unceremoniously. Nintendo says Dragon Drive is coming out summer 2025. And I'm saying here that I don't expect that to happen. I've been rough already on that trailer, but I was watching the Nintendo Treehouse live gameplay. To me, this game looks as technically competitive as the chicken race at the state fair. And you might say, gosh, that's fine, but it seems like those Nintendo Treehouse people are having a good time.
Oh no. Oh! Wow, this is a game of defense here.
But you should know these people are absolute professionals at pretending to have fun. Here they are 10 years ago having a blast with another unceremoniously disappeared game.
Yes.
If it can happen to Project Giant Robot, it can happen to Dragon Drive. And my final expectation, 0 big new franchises for the entire console's lifetime. Just like its daddy, the Switch 1. And the reason I say big is the Switch 1 had new franchises, Ring Fit Adventure, sure. ARMS is basically a big hit if you consider it's a brand new fighting game IP. However, what I'm saying is Nintendo has different expectations now for what big is, meaning I don't expect those characters to ever be walking around Universal Studios. They're not going to show up on the Meet the Characters tab on the website, and that's basically what I'm expecting to continue. I can't see it otherwise. Imagine them saying, meet Chachi, the biggest troublemaker in Pufflevania. If Chachi doesn't sell 8 million copies, there's no point in continuing with Chachi. I'm expecting 8 years from now, there being no new characters in the Meet the Characters tab. Okay, well, here's something that's more of a prediction than an expectation. Because I bet throughout the Switch, at some point in the Switch 2's life, Mario is going to have a new buddy. And I'm not talking about like Cappy level buddy. I'm talking about like something that's Yoshi tier. Because I think at this point, they're so trapped in their own success that to introduce any new characters, they have to be part of an already successful IP, grow them out from there. Because also, this crew is kind of worn out. I'm saying Mario Kart is going to need more characters. The Mario movies will need more sequels. I expect the Mario family to expand. I'm saying, meet Chachi, Mario's reluctant partner in crime. And that's delayed input and also the end of our current season. Next week, I'm going to LA for Summer Game Fest. The week after that, I'll be probably posting a hot takeaways video from the Xbox showcase. Maybe roping in Nintendo and Sony if those happen to happen. We'll see. And then delayed input proper will return June 27th. Until then, thanks for watching. In stinky news this week, EA's Black Panther game has been canceled, and its studio Cliffhanger was closed along with it. And just in case you get them confused like I often do, we're not talking about Marvel 1943, Rise of Hydra, which features Black Panther and is a game that hasn't come out yet, but is something else entirely. This one's the EA one. You're looking at all they ever presented from this game. And the way this worked out is it was reported from an internal email that EA sent to EA to explain why the studio was closing. And this part made me a little nervous. This is EA Entertainment president Laura Miele. She says the company is focusing on a small handful of franchises going forward: Battlefield, The Sims, Skate, and Apex Legends. That's 3 enormous franchises and Skate. Like, I'm so nervous about what EA expects out of Skate. I guess based off of like some overperforming PewDiePie videos from over 10 years ago. What do they think? What do they think Skate's gonna be? I hope they, at this moment, just cut those expectations in half. And maybe cut that in half. Because I don't, like, it's just Skate. Anyway, to be fair, Miele also assures EA will continue to invest in its Iron Man game at Motive and the third Star Wars Jedi game, as well as maintain its mobile business despite today's cuts. So I guess what I'm imagining now is just this circumstance where there are potentially hundreds of people working on Marvel games for EA that EA doesn't really particularly seem that interested in because they want to be pushing their own IP, like Skate.
Let us know which brands you want to see show up in San Van.
Meanwhile, you got Marvel Cosmic Invasion out here, which might have a modest budget, sure, but it will absolutely, unquestionably profit. These people won't have to have their studio shut down. And this is just me thinking out loud here. But maybe until this entire global economic gaming stress situation is figured out, we could just have everybody making nice little 2D brawlers. I would be happy about that.